Is Genesis chapter 1 the origin story of all of the cosmos, or is it the origin story of just our planet here? Hi, I'm Sam, and I am a student of the Bible. I've been a pastor for 22 years. I got a pretty good grasp on biblical languages, and I write in my blog. And I tell you all that because this is kind of just who I am and what I've been doing for years and why I put these videos up. And if you are not familiar with who I am, then you'll know now. So this is a great question to answer. It's one that has come up a lot. In Genesis chapter 1, is this talking about the cosmos, all the planets, all the stars, all that kind of stuff? Or is it talking about just our planet? And I think the answer is actually in the text. And so what we're not going to do in this video, we're not going to try to chase down some kind of scientific thing and like, is it millions of years? Is it billions of years? Is it only like 6,000 years? Is it, literal 6-day creator? We're not going to do any of that. All we're going to look at is to answer this question. What are we talking about when we talk about the origin story of Genesis? Is it concerned with all the cosmos, or is it concerned with our planet? So in the text, in the English, it says this, and I'll read it from my NIV Bible here. It says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters." So you're probably like, well, yeah, duh. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It must be talking about all the cosmos, all the things. I think the thing that we need to pay attention to is, what does the original language actually say? And what do we draw from that? And then how does some of the other things that we read in this text back up what I think is the correct reading of this text? Okay, so I want to take us to the Hebrew text. We're going to put it somewhere on the screen, and I want us to read it together, and I want to explain some of these words and why it's so important that we understand them. And then I want to actually take us to the Septuagint, which kind of agrees with what we're talking about from the Hebrew text. And then I want to talk about a very important phrase in verse 2 that helps us understand this even better of what's going on here. Because I want to suggest to you here on this video is that God is creating, He's forming this planet, and that's all this is talking about. This isn't talking about space. This isn't talking about other planets, all that. The writer of Genesis is uninterested in all of that. They're only interested in what's going on right here, right now, at this time that they're writing about this planet, okay? And so here's where I get that from, okay? So it says in the Hebrew text, here somewhere, I don't know, it says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim va'et haaretz. That's Genesis 1:1. And so here's what those words mean. Bereshit means origin, beginnings, in the beginning. It could also mean when the beginning happened. Okay, so that's kind of we'll get to that. The word bara there means to create, to bring about. Elohim is the plural masculine name of God. It's not the gods. I see that flying around on social media. It's like, in the beginning, the gods created. That's not it. This is while it is plural and masculine, this is the name of the Most High God. Okay, Elohim. Et is an untranslatable kind of a word. Hashamayim means the heavens, but more literally, it quite literally means the sky. What we see when we look up. That's kind of the gist of what the author of Genesis wants us to understand. It's like, when you look up and you see the sky and all that's in the sky, that's what they're talking about with Hashamayim. Okay, and then va'et is the vav consecutive, not the consecutive, the vav conjunctive. It's like it's this. It basically is translated and with the et there, and then it brings us to the other part of the sentence, which is haaretz, which means the earth, quite literally the ground. So the sky, what's up there, and what's right here. So what Genesis 1:1 is trying to tell us is that in the beginning of all of this, God created the sky and the ground. All right, so the Septuagint actually agrees with the interpretation of the sky and the ground. The Septuagint is the Old Greek version of the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. It was the one that the disciples would have been reading, that the New Testament authors would have quoted from. It's kind of what they had around. This is how Genesis 1:1 reads in the Septuagint. It says, "En arche epoisen hatheos ton uranon kai ten yen." Okay, translated, it says, in the beginning, God made the heavens, or the skies, and the ground. So NRK, in the beginning, epoisen, made, ha, theos, God, ton, uranon, the heavens, or the skies, kai, and ten, gen, the ground, the hard place, the dry places. So that's how the Septuagint reads, and it really agrees with the Hebrew reading of Hashamayim, Ve'et Haaretz, the sky up there and then the ground down here. So super cool how those two things can connect. And I think it's kind of fascinating that we don't translate it that way in our English Bibles, and we probably should. Ground. Now, what I love about the Hebrew Bible, because that's the way that the Genesis 1:1 in our English translations in like the Christian Old Testament kind of thing, they translate it, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Very standard, almost across the board. The Hebrew Bible, especially in the Jewish Publication Society of it, their version of the Hebrew Bible, and I think even in Robert Alter's Hebrew Bible, they start out differently, because they start out saying, when God began to create the heaven and the earth, or when God began to create this planet. And the idea behind that is that something was already kind of here, and God began to create and form this thing. It's not like this boom, and the time ultimately starts right at this point. It's like, God stepped in and he began to create this thing. And so that's a fascinating approach to the word Bereshit, because it can mean that. And I think in this context, it actually does, because of what happens in verse 2. So in English, just verse 2 says, "Now the earth was formless and empty." And the Hebrew words there are tohu vavohu. And what it really means is an empty wasteland. It was just this wasteland across the board, covered in water, dark, deep. This chaotic wasteland is kind of this picture that you need to see as you're looking out. And then the Spirit of God, the Ruach of God, was hovering over the deep waters in the dark. And so you've got this picture of this formless, empty, chaotic mess going on. And what we're going to see through the rest of Genesis is that when God began to create this, he was hovering over this formless mess, chaotic place that was formless and empty, and he actually steps in and forms it and fills it. And that's what Genesis 1 is all about. It's about the God of the universe creating, but forming and filling as he creates. And that's what we see here. Day 1, day 2, day 3 is God forming. He forms the sky, he forms the light on day 1, right? Light and dark. He forms the sky and the sea and separates those two. Day 3, he forms the land. And then on days 4, 5, and 6, he fills all of the things that he has formed. And he makes all of this stuff. And it's such a cool thing. So Genesis 1 is actually, if we follow the pattern of what the Hebrew is trying to tell us, it's all about this planet right here. The writer of Genesis is not concerned with what's out there, not concerned about space, not concerned about the cosmos, not concerned about, is there a bang, is there not, all that kind of stuff. Not even concerned about that. When God began to create the sky and the earth, everything that we see and experience here on this planet, it was formless. It was chaotic. It was crazy. Something was already here. God was hovering over it, and he began to form it, and he began to fill it to what he wanted in it. Ultimately, he says, this is very good what I've done. That's Genesis chapter 1. Well, hopefully that was informative and helpful. And if you loved it, give me a like, subscribe, all those things, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for hanging out with me.